Okay, well, hey, Tal, we have Tal Chalozin from Israel. Did I do that? How did I do? How did I do?
You did quite well, quite well. My dad will be
Okay,
proud.
okay. Well, and so we have Tal with us today, talking about AVOD, which is for those who don't know what AVOD means, it's advertising video on demand. And Tal is a founder of a company called Innovid, and we found Tal a year ago, a little over, maybe over a year ago,
Wow.
on a podcast that he did with the Ad Exchanger. When did you do that? Do you remember when that was?
I don't know. I don't know which one, but there was one that we did with that exchanger just as the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes,
We did quite
that's
a lot
yes.
of talks about just the impact that we see on the market. So that was right at the beginning. I would say early April.
Yeah, and we were just, just very fascinated with so with where the industry could go potentially with lockdown. And when I heard your podcast, I just couldn't wait to talk to you someday. And now here we
Wow.
are. So I really appreciate your time. And um, we just wanted to ask you a little bit about where the industry is going. I mean, Roku is a large position of our fund, but we just want to talk a little bit, maybe just about the opportunity in AVOD, about your business, about where things are going, and so we don't need to necessarily focus on Roku by any means, but yeah. So maybe we could start by just telling us a little bit about Innovid and where you guys came from and the role you play in the broader connected television ecosystem.
Sure. Um, so first of all, hello, happy Friday, or whenever anyone's listening to it. I'm Tal Chalozin. This is the English version, not the Hebrew one. I'm CTO and co-founder of Innovid, as you said. I'll tell you a little bit about what we do and our place in the industry. So Innovid is a software company selling technology to the buy side of advertising. So this is mostly media buying agencies, sometimes marketing department within large brands. And the software that we offer has three components to it. One, and the core of it, is what is called in kind of ad tech jargon is ad serving. So we are the company and the technology that many marketers are uploading their ad creative, the 30-second or 15-second or a minute of an ad, and we are the one that literally doing the streaming into Hulu, into YouTube, into Fox or NBC or Snapchat or New York Times. It doesn't matter, wherever people watch content. So the ad server is the core, and it's not just the technicality of delivering the ad, it's everything around campaign management. So when is the campaign starts and ends, and what are the sites and apps you want to use, and what are the targeting parameters, and many different things. And then on top of that, there are two other applications that rides that ad management platform. One is a lot of tools around creative. So this is personalization tools, interactivity, rendering of video. So different software that allows marketers to better adapt creative that in many cases were shot for television to adapt it to the web. And then the last piece, I guess all three of them, I'm sorry for maybe taking too long, but
Oh,
probably relevant. But the last piece is around measurement. Because we are the plumbing service that literally deliver the ads, we use the analogy of a FedEx. That we're kind of the carrier that takes an ad from point A to point B. We are the company that most brands are using in order to be the system of record for counting of the ads, how many ads were delivered, because that's the currency that people pay for. And because we're not affiliated with any media company or any destination, we are unbiased. So we're the main system that counts the ad and then feed it into invoicing systems. Just in terms of numbers, roughly 40% of all video ads in the United States come from our system and being billed based on our numbers. This is depends on the numbers that you look at, but call it $6 to $8 billion of media. Again, the dollars doesn't flow through us, but we're in charge of the accounting.
Okay.
And we started with video. That was the core and still the core of what we do. We acquired a few companies along the way, and to expand across to omni channels. So we do also any other digital advertising, display advertising, social, audio, even digital out of home, so digital billboards. Every place that a digital ad could be delivered, we can offer our services, but our core is video and connected television. I'll just end with the connected television side, which I'm sure that this is a core part of our discussion. About 6 years ago or so, we bet very heavily on connected television. We did the first deal that Roku ever did in marketing, when there was literally one person working for advertising at Roku.
Okay.
We did a big deal with Roku and put a lot of R&D investment and a lot of other things in connected television, and it's paying off. Right now, north of 60% of all CTV ads, connected television ads in the United States, come from us. We're over-indexed on CTV significantly, so more than 1 out of 2 ads on Roku, on Hulu, on Peacock, or other places come from us and measured by us. And that represent a little over 50% of all of our revenue. So
Wow, that's
roughly.
impressive. So Roku, for example, I mean, so that sounds like they're a significant customer for you today. How do you work with them? What is an example of is it third-party measurement that they need you for now, or what's the relationship look like with those big customers like Roku?
Sure. So first of all, just in terms of the distinction, in terms of our definition, or anyone's definition of the customer, is just the paying party. So Roku is not paying us in this case. They're extremely close partner, but they're more of an enablement partner. Our customers would be Target and Best Buy and Chrysler and Toyota and Procter & Gamble and every very large brand. So all call it the Fortune 1000 brands that are advertising on television. Those would be our customers. In terms of Roku, we have two main partnerships. One, we did a deal with Roku back in 2015 or so, or 14, to co-develop with Roku something that is now called the Roku Ad Framework, which is a piece of software that is part of the Roku operating system, that gives different apps services around advertising. Different creative capabilities, the ability to create an ad that you can purchase inside the ad, better measurement, many different things that are services for different apps. And Roku, as the media company, is the biggest user of those services. And we have a very strong partnership. Again, they're not paying us for that. Procter & Gamble would pay us, but they're utilizing, and Roku allows us a massive distribution because of that deal. Second thing is, and this is all public, sometime last year we signed a very big deal to license or to collaborate with Roku on an exclusive basis to build connected television, what is called in television reach and frequency measurement. So essentially to give marketers the need that they're maybe the biggest question that marketers ask right now in the world of television is, what is the absolute reach? How many households? When I ran a campaign across NBC and Fox and Roku and Hulu and Pluto TV, how many households did I reach? And what's the duplication between all those networks? So the people that watch ESPN, what else they watch? The people that are using the Roku channel, what else they do? And it's very hard to get to that data. We did a deal with Roku to get the fire hose of data from Roku TVs, and be able to build a third-party measurement solution that we offer to marketers, but it's powered by Roku, and it gives Roku a lot of benefits as well. But again, this is it's paid by marketers.
Wow, so you're just in a really unique position to understand where advertising supported video on demand, or AVOD, where it has come from, where it is, and kind of where it's going. And could you tell us a little bit about how has the value proposition for the consumer changed in the last few years of ad-supported streaming television?
So in several ways, and I feel like we're in the depending on the analogy. And we're in the early innings of ad-supported television or ad-supported streaming. I would say, I'll explain why I think that, or I don't know, the early stages of the S-curve. So how's the value changes? Maybe the core part is just more content. That's the key part that happened and is still happening. That we're still not. We did not even complete this transformation from what's available in other channels to what's available in streaming world. So just more content available, and we've seen it last year with. It's not even just with ad-supported VOD. It's everything. But all the Peacock, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Discovery, all of those services that are launching are all helping this streaming revolution. That then every person goes out and say, oh, this is kind of cool. I can disconnect my cable and do an a la carte mode, pick only the things that I want, and get a digital experience, meaning that I can watch it whenever I want in whatever world. So that's maybe the biggest transformation is just the access to content. The second thing is when you asked about ad-supported, I think, I don't know how many investors at least are familiar with that, but experiencing advertising in linear television pretty sucks. In the United States, the average in broadcast channel is 17 minutes per hour of content is given to ads, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
to
we
think
all
about
grew
it.
up with we all grew up with these terrible ads that would just go over and over and over again to buy insurance or to trade in your
Correct.
jewelry today. And you just felt like who are these ads for, and why do they keep going over and over again, considering you're paying a fortune for cable TV?
Yeah. So it kept on going because there was no alternative. There was no technology to make it a lot better. There was no alternative for viewers to go in other places. There was somewhat of a geography monopoly in linear television, or still is. So because of all of those reasons, it's kind of stagnated. There's no innovation. It just went up and up and up. 17 minutes per hour, more than half of your time is giving into advertising, which is clearly a horrible experience. If you watch same content, literally the same, NBC, if you watch an episode of This Is Us on NBC, let's say on Hulu, or you would be watching only 8 minutes per hour. And then many other services, say Peacock, announced that the average time is down to 5 minutes. And there are other services, Fox and Tubi, for example, is taking it down to 3 minutes per hour. So again, first point is that there's more content, more I don't know, wider spectrum of available inventory or available content. Second thing is just, honestly, less time equals to just better experience. Time is maybe the only commodity we cannot make more of. So that's a very, very important thing. And the third thing, the reason that all of those services manage to take it down, they're not doing it for the love of God. They're not just giving money out to people. They manage to create better ad experience, which means that marketers need less ads in order to get the same quality. Is because, Jeremy, what you said earlier is that I don't need to see in ads, if I didn't own a car in the last 15 years, showing me a Ford F-150 pickup truck will not change my behavior. So the advent of addressable television, or the ability to not only do a nationwide ad, but something you can literally choose the household-based targeting, then it allows us to lower the ads, increase the cost per ad. But from a marketer standpoint, it doesn't matter because they spend less overall because they don't need all those ads in order to sell their product. So it's literally a win-win-win that was 100% driven by technology, not by anything else. So right. This is maybe the third thing. I can go on and on. There's so many more things, but that just as a high level.
Well, and when we think about something like Instagram, people don't complain about the ads on Instagram because they're so relevant to what you're looking at, what you're searching for, what you're interested in. And it seems that if you can get a very high CPM or valuable ad, even if there's just a one or two per hour, that it would be enormously beneficial for everybody, including the consumer. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then that's an interesting segue into a good question. There's a dynamic where if you're a cord cutter and you cut your linear TV, your Wi-Fi costs go up, and maybe you want to stream 3 or 4 SVOD services or subscription-based services. And then all of a sudden you can very quickly find yourself at the same or higher bill than if you cut the cord. Your experience gets better for sure. But I mean, how do you kind of see the shakeout? I mean, if advertising video ad loads are coming down so close where you only have to spend 3, 4, 5 minutes per hour to SVOD, do you see that taking share of SVOD? What's the balance of services between SVOD and AVOD if the user experience is somewhat normalizing?
And just for those listeners that don't know, SVOD is subscription on demand. So like a Netflix or Disney Plus or Discovery.
Yeah. If you just for your listeners, if you want the full I don't know, the full data on that is that AVOD is ad-supported video on demand, SVOD is subscription video on demand, and there's a third category called TVOD, which is transaction video on demand, which is kind of like a pay-per-view type of a model. But the reality is that in many cases is a combo of couple of them. Think about Hulu is one that you pay subscription and you see ads. So it is and in the early days of Hulu, a lot of people were raging, what the hell is going on here? Why am I also subscription and getting ads? But the reality is that this is television in every country in the world. I'm paying for monthly fee and I'm seeing ads. So the dual revenue stream is not something that was invented in streaming. But this is for something else. So to your question, I would say 2 things. One is that there's a misconception that the move to SVOD or to streaming or to a la carte is done in order to save the bottom line, which is it's incorrect. You maybe feel like you're saving, you're getting less channels, but maybe you're getting the right channels that you want. But at the bottom line, it's very hard to really lower your fees. The average cable bill in the United States is about $88 per month. If you take video out and just leave data, it doesn't cut a lot, and then you tack on a Netflix, a Disney Plus, and others, you get very close to that pretty easily. So that's not that far off. But if you think about it, just look at the content, look at the latest Emmys and the Oscars. Most of the content out there was content that was only available on streaming. There's very little content in the latest Emmy Awards that was one that you can see without on the standard bundle. So in order to see all the tremendous content out there, you need to be, so the best television is not available on traditional television anymore. So it's not really the alternative of just of saving the cost. Is you want to access the good content, this is where it's at. That's one thing just about the pricing and the SVOD. But now in general, I would say that there's another misconception is that vast majority of time goes into subscription services because of the noise of the Netflix revolution that is going on. But the reality is that it's not the case. It's not the case in the United States, and it's definitely not the case in other countries, let alone in Eastern Europe and in Asia, which it's absolutely, if you look at ARPU for subscription VOD, it's so down that it's impossible to actually monetize minutes on just subscription.
And that would be subscription VOD. Video on demand for these services like Dish or something. So like an app for Dish where you're still having to pay like a cable type of bill.
Correct.
But you're able to stream it. And there's a big difference between that and then what we're talking about, which is essentially ad-supported streaming television. Yeah.
So then look at the reality. This is a number that Roku stopped sharing, but they shared it in the past, and if you kind of backtrack some of the numbers, you can say that it stays kind of the same, is that vast majority of time on Roku, when they released our streams, vast majority of that time was going into ad-supported content, either hybrid model or just ad-supported content. So even in North America, vast majority of time is still going into ad-supported. And I think that sometime this year when Peacock launched, Peacock being the NBC service that launched, Peacock made a big change as opposed to many other services like Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and others, is that they're actually betting heavily on ads, not on subscription. They already released the numbers that the lion's share, north of 80% of the people are taking the absolute free version that is ad supported. And their bet is that on the future is that this is what is going to stay going forward. They don't even ask you for credit card. They're the only service that when you sign up, which is a big thing, and people don't talk about it, but they lower the barrier to entry as low as possible. So then you subscribe to Peacock, you get Seinfeld, Parks and Rec, all the content that was driving people into Netflix and Hulu, they migrated into Peacock, and that's and it's all ad supported. So safe to assume that what we're going to see from here is a massive rise of ad-supported content. And maybe the last point here, I'm sure we're going to talk about it more, is here comes sports. Sports is maybe the biggest driver for paid television in the United States, and maybe the biggest the biggest reason for people to stay on the bundle. And sports is coming big into streaming. So Peacock already have and betting heavily on sports with Premier League and WWE. The UEFA, the European Soccer League is available on Paramount Plus, ad supported as well. And then clearly the biggest news in town is Amazon signing up or buying Thursday Night Football, the second highly rated show on television in the United States, is coming to be available only on streaming.
Well,
all of that.
And that's interesting because when we think about content, we usually don't think about it, and at least in linear television, content wasn't necessarily wasn't a customer acquisition vehicle. And it seems like what's happening now is content is being used more in the streaming world as an acquisition, as CAC, as a customer acquisition cost. And thinking about that, it seems like the addressable market of ad-supported streaming TV would evolve to become very different from the addressable market that was linear advertising television. So, do you see any difference in the potential addressable market over the next 5 years compared to, for maybe the advertisers, for the content producers, for everybody, compared to maybe how the addressable market looked for linear? In other words, is this just a shift from one basket to the other, or is AVOD in streaming television unlocking a much bigger addressable market that we may be undervaluing right now?
Yeah, I clearly would say that this is different. Like any other big transformation that started from taking what the incumbent, slapping it into new technology, but then once that happens, so many other things happen. Like this analogy of an iPhone that started as a phone, but then unlocked Uber and grocery delivery and streaming music and so many other things, that the phone call is becoming the smallest app that is used on the phone. Very similar things going to happen with television, and maybe the biggest driver in my mind, at least the one that we can pretty vividly see right now, would be just the type of marketers. So if you think about it, CBS, it's kind of a funny stats, but CBS, one of the most highest rated network in the United States, normally they're rated number one, there are 220 advertisers buying CBS. That's it. They have 220 clients. Where Instagram have 6 million or 6.5 or 7 million advertisers buying Instagram. That fact alone, which is again such a big difference, this is not something that CBS can wake up overnight and now change the way that they work and now make it up to 6 million. It requires a tectonic shift in order to move from one camp to another. And that fact alone will change so many things. Will change the quality for the viewer. Everything you said about Instagram being amazing. The reason that it's amazing is that Facebook and Instagram has bigger inventory to choose from, so they can tailor an ad experience to you because they have so much more advertisers, and it's a better experience for an advertiser because it lowers the barrier to entry to get in. So then it's much easier to run a campaign. There's no minimum fees. You can do it digitally. You can do it through simple UI. You can measure your outcome. So many other things. But at the end of the day, again, everyone wins from that experience. So 100% agree with you that it's not apples to apples, meaning again changing the cable, but it's exactly the same. It will be a very, very different universe. Maybe the first and the biggest example that we see literally right now is the advent of DTC advertisers, the direct to consumers, which are advertisers that kind of invented themselves or built themselves on Facebook. It's a marketer that sells mattress in a box or I don't know, subscription for a toothpaste. That built it on Instagram, but then what they discover is that Instagram is amazing in order to reach the first million subs, the first million users, but then you need mass market vehicles that lets you tell big picture stories and narratives, and television is the best and frankly the only vehicle for that. So connected television is literally the best of both worlds. It's addressable, it's measurable, it's highly targeted. But then at the same time, it's big picture. You can tell sight, sound, and motion. People are leaning back, which means that there's so many studies that it's better for conviction and for persuasion. That a lot of things that require storytelling are better here. So again, long answer, but hopefully that shed lights into different things.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of potential demand and creativity on the ad side. That can convert from linear, but I think you're in such an interesting position to comment on, having bet big 6 years ago on this ad supported trend. But where are we at? I guess with the baseball analogy, continuing with technological hurdles, what are the big unlocks that are coming up going forward that may kind of help unlock this demand and creativity on the ad side from a technological standpoint?
Yeah. So it's an awesome question. I'm sorry, I always do that. Give way too long of an answer. So feel free to.
No, this is great. Keep talking. I'll be right back. Keep talking.
Yeah, it's all good. And I'm Israeli also, so politeness is not one of our traits. So feel free to jump in. I'm not insulted easily, and stop me. So what are again the early inning analogy? So clearly the first thing that happened in this revolution is more people buying devices. That's the bare bone evolution, and just you can look at it all by the numbers. So vast majority of homes in the United States right now already have devices that are capable to streaming. The average replacement cycle of TVs are roughly five years. By now, every home bought a television that is smart. So that's the first thing. The second thing is more content needs to be available out there. And I feel like, again, if you look at kind of the adoption of technology, this is what 2020 frankly was more than anything. It's just more content was available out there. With again Disney Plus and Peacock and WWE and all of those things are happening, and that was this evolution that happened last year, and more people were exposed to that level. Clearly, the next level is live television. That a lot of what's available on streaming right now is on demand, which is wonderful, but still there are maybe 3 categories of television that are not really available big time on streaming, and those will unlock more, which is sports, news, and big events. Big events being sometimes sports, but sometimes it's the Oscars, it's elections, it's different things that are, all of those things are essentially appointed viewing, are things that you need to watch it at Sunday at 8 p.m. And those are things that are available, but not at large, and definitely not in terms of the perception of people. Those 3 of them are maybe the biggest thing that hold people into the traditional bundle. So, but that's already been cracking pretty heavily. You can see a lot of innovation going on news, specifically on the local level. So there's a lot of innovation going on, bringing local news to the masses during streaming and sports. We talked about it briefly earlier. So those 2, this evolution will unlock a lot more. And the second thing that is not yet solved, funny enough, but a lot of people think that the technical backbone of the internet is just locked and loaded and ready. But funny enough, television, traditional television, which is called, again, in technical terms, a managed network. So it doesn't matter if it's a satellite universe on a direct TV dish, or in other countries, Sky or other satellite operators, or cable or telcos, doesn't matter, but it's managed fully and it's a closed ecosystem. And it's a pretty darn awesome product. It never fails. It never buffers. You never see a kind of a low quality jitters, like Zoom calls or things like that. And the volume doesn't spike up and down when you move to ads. It just works. You turn on the television and it works. Internet is not there, frankly, yet. We have a very big part of it, but and we're working extremely hard. But just if you look at the largest events, the best, if you want the kind of an in the weed answer here, but the best parameter to look at is concurrency. So the real thing that impacts the technology is how many people are watching the same thing at the same second. That's the real thing that makes the barrier on the network, on everything, on decision making, on data collection, on streaming, on everything starts to fail when you see high concurrency. The highest event in terms of concurrency right now in the United States, bless you, highest event in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl in the United States average at a peak, average at roughly 4 million people. 4 million people. If you look at the average concurrency of linear television in the Super Bowl is at a peak is at a little over 100 million homes are watching the Super Bowl. So we're so far from the numbers of linear television in terms of, if you now, Jeremy, you talked earlier about the moving from one cable to another. If you now disconnect linear television altogether and force everyone to see the same thing through the internet, the system collapses completely. So we're still far, meaning that I now spin it on the positive stuff. There's so much more innovation to be made from so many companies. Now look at from betting. If you believe that that's going to happen, just look at companies that are in that space. So streaming companies or CDNs, anything from Fastly, Amazon, Akamai, Amazon with cloud providers, Google with GCP and others, Oracle. All of those companies will benefit from that tidal wave massively. A lot of data-related companies and marketing tech companies, all of those which are charging by volume. I can just speak about ourselves. We're benefiting massively by just more people and just more traffic on our servers is massive for us, and we're investing a lot in that. But the same goes for companies like LiveRamp, which supply identity solution, Nielsen that does measurement solutions, Newstar, and there's other publicly traded companies that are all benefiting from that tidal wave, and everyone is working to do that, and clearly all the streaming companies that we all talked about.
Yeah, how would you, when you think about as from an advertiser perspective, when you look at the big platforms that are out there today that kind of control the eyeballs of the consumer, whether it's Roku or Android TV or Amazon's Fire Stick, how should we think about those big competitors? And then as a second tier, you have some of these television OEMs, people that make TVs, are trying also to get into the business of selling ads. We know that they're all very different, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about, from your perspective on the technology side or from an advertiser's perspective, how you see the differences in these, maybe the top operating systems that are out there competing for the crown ultimately.
Sure. I'll do an experiment now. I'll try to give you a short answer and see if that works. I don't know if Seth, you were trying to say. I know it looked like you're laughing. Yeah. I don't know. So I think there are two things to look at in this world that matters. I'll start with what are the two. So one is the difference in digital marketing in television, we believe, will be significantly than any other big era in marketing or in advertising. One is that both in search dominated by Google, social dominated by Facebook, television will not be a winner takes all market. So it is. So the first thing you need to know about all of that is that it's significantly more fragmented, and there is no reason, or at least there's no line of sight that this fragmentation is going away. Those are a few very big customers: Google, Apple, Amazon, Samsung. Roku is the little engine that could, and a few other big players. None of them are backing off from this stuff. So that's one thing, just to think about who are the big beneficiary of this transformation. It's not going to be winner takes all. It's not even winner takes most. So Google is in a very good pole position here, but not to take 60% of the market, 70% of the market. So that's one thing important. Second thing is that the devices, so the consumer electronics, has zero implication here. The only component that actually matters is what you said, Jeremy, is the operating system. The operating system holds the keys to the relationship with the viewer, first and foremost, which equates to data. So you actually sign up not to your Roku device, not to your Samsung TV, you sign up to the operating system that is running on that device. So I'm gonna unpack in a second who are the players there, but just the operating system is the most important point. And maybe the last thing on the operating system side is that they hold the keys to the App Store, which, as you've seen in the past, operating system in general in every revolution was the winner in every world. Microsoft won the PC era clearly because of Windows, and there's a bunch of antitrust lawsuit against that proved that, and clearly Google and Apple won the mobile era because of Android and iOS. So operating system owners are by far the winners. Here comes the largest operating system in the United States in connected television right now is Roku, beating Apple, beating Google, and beating Amazon. And there's no real sign for them to lose their crown. So Roku is clearly an amazing winner in this world. Doesn't seem like there's any reason for them to lose their pace. Now, just a point about just the market and the players. So the market is extremely fragmented, a lot more than that people give credit to. So Roku with the Roku OS. Amazon is just in terms of order. So Roku has roughly, in terms of devices sold, they have roughly 30%. And I know the stats that I'm giving is data coming from Innovid, and it's coming mostly for ad supported. So if someone buys a device and only uses it for Netflix, we don't know about it. But there's very few of those, so it doesn't matter. So as long as you just open YouTube once, we know you. Roku being the largest one, Amazon Fire OS as an operating system being the second one, and then probably you would go to Android, and I'm giving North America. I'll actually preface that in a second about other markets, but probably Android with Chromecast being a very a decent player in this case. And then someone that people don't talk about it, you would be the gaming consoles makers, which is PlayStation and Xbox. Both of them together makes a pretty large market share. Again, different operating system, but Microsoft, Xbox, and PlayStation with their own OS. And then all the smart TV makers. That each one of them have their own operating system. So Samsung has an operating system called Tizen. LG has an operating system called WebOS. I'm sorry, and Vizio has a recently public company has an operating system called SmartCast. And then there is a very small list. So that's an important one to make. Just last point on the operating system is that Android is I mentioned them at third, maybe they're actually fourth. If you put the gaming consoles combined, they're maybe the fourth afterwards. But so it's interesting to see Android not being in the leading position. But Andrew, I'm a very big long-term bet on Google on this part, because if you look at what happened in other countries, specifically in Eastern Europe and in smaller countries, Israel being one of them, Google made a very interesting strategy, is to go to all TV operators and just give exactly the same strategy as Android with handset makers and operators, is that they gave Android TV practically for free, and created allowed operators to create their own devices. So again, in Israel, all carriers have an Android-based device, and if you look at even in Italy and even in places in Poland, in other places in Eastern Europe, you can see that market dominated by Android. My bet is that we'll end up being with maybe the three big players would be Roku, Fire TV, and Android.
Yeah, and so kind of building on that, it seems like the OS is clearly competitive, but I think especially with internet and digital companies, everyone's racing to provide the user with the best experience. Whoever does that seems to win. And I think just to kind of touch on a Roku specific strategy, how do you view the Roku channel and Roku getting into owned and leased content? Is that more of a customer experience offering where they can offer you a great OS and this free content? Is it just enable them to better serve ads and increase margins, or where do you see that going? Because from our perspective, it's one of the newer and maybe most misunderstood assets in their properties.
You mean specifically the content acquisition or the TRC, the Roku channel?
The Roku channel.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. The amount of questions that I'm getting about this always shows me that the absolute misunderstanding. The Roku channel is it's not even a Trojan horse, but that's literally the engine that feeds so many things there. Again, it's not negative or secretive, so it's not a Trojan horse due to that. So in general, I'd say Roku has been amazing on coming up with new models and new things, betting on the future, and then the future really rides exactly on what they're doing. They started with the powered by Roku with their OS, giving it to OEMs. They did it with a heavy bet on ad supported. They created their own channel, which is ad supported. TRC, I'll talk about TRC in a second. And then the last one, which I think is maybe the most or the least understood, whatever, is their heavy bet on ad tech, which again we can talk about it separately if you want. But specifically on TRC, yes, it's absolutely amazing. All Roku powered devices are historically, now everyone caught up, but was on the lower tier price point, high quality but lower tiers. So the top selling TVs in the United States is TCL 4K 55-inch TV powered by Roku that is listed at $299 or something absolutely crazy like that, which is a badass TV. And then how amazing is that when you just literally unplug the TV, it tells you can now, because they own the App Store, again, the same thing that Apple does and Google does in other places, they just took a page out of the other people playbook and applied it into television. And then they say, oh, we will pre-install a channel and make sure that you're going to open it because they own the ad space. But this channel historically had amazing content that was all ad supported. Then they sign up deals for news. Started with ABC News, but they had a bunch of news deals to bring in more news in there, so to attract more people that are from other cohort that want to watch news. And then they added sometime during the pandemic the live television, what I don't remember what they call it, the channel guide, something like that. So they have a lot of live TV channels, and then they kind of sprinkled on top of that owned content. My gut is that they will never be in the content game really. Because content, it's an ancient game. The only way to win content is by outbidding the others, which is, it's impossible to do that. I think that it's a losing strategy. Disney can do that because that's the way that they build their business. Roku will never. Also, the way that Anthony and Scott and everyone there are building the company is on frugality and building things the way that it needs. And content is just, Hollywood doesn't work like that. So I don't think that they will win based on content, but they're doing something I'll tell you something. It's a cheap trick, but they're doing it amazingly. So there's something in the advertising ecosystem called the upfront, that's the event that all marketers come in together. In the digital world, it's called new fronts. That just happened last year. And I don't know if you see me or
Yes,
hear
yeah.
me okay.
There was a delay.
Okay. Yeah. So the upfront is a very big event and very important for the marketing ecosystem, because a very large percentage of dollars spent. Is it okay? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Very large percentage of dollars spent. Very large percentage of dollars spent annually is going through that event. In order to partake in that event, again, not a lot of people know that. In order to participate in that event, you need to be selling content. You need to have original content. So that's the trick, is that you need original content in order to be on stage. And that's the reason why a lot of companies are saying, yeah, I also produce content, I own content, I have exclusive right to content, I have a studio, whatever it is. So I'm not saying that they did it in order just to get the ticket in, but that's something that a lot of companies are paying their fees to be in the club, to do that, and it pays dividends to be there.
Right, because the content they have is they're not really saying we're going to be in the traditional content business. They're not going to go produce movies or shows. They're just buying very kind of average, laid back reality type shows, and just a couple of them. It's not been
actually the Quibi content is actually not a bad content. All of both actors, directors, screenwriters are all top-notch content. The Roku is amazing. You can see all the deals that they made. They're just amazing in finding tremendously undervalued assets.
And getting all the Quibi assets. It seems like it was just almost a very, very low cash component and more of an earnout than anything.
Correct.
Winding down.
But again, $2 billion invested. They got it for practically nothing. So that was an amazing deal. But another thing about content that just Roku does, all the operating system owners know that game, is that when you own the content, you get the rights also to the graphics, which is very important for ads. So once you own the content and you own a couple of tidbits of content that have good visibility that people want to watch, then you can just run a lot of Disney and Netflix probably invented that game, but just taking again Avengers screenshots or Star Wars screenshot and running boatload of ads with that hero shots. So you need good content and you need rights to that in order to do it.
Okay, well, that's really fascinating. Thank you for that. So I guess one of the last questions that comes to mind is, tell us about T-commerce. What's the future of T-commerce? We wrote about the potential for T-commerce in our last annual letter in Roku, but it seems like it's something that's only been done at scale in Asia. Do you think someday there's going to be a convergence of advertising and e-commerce, and how does that affect ad prices? How does that affect the potential addressable market size of ad-supported connected TV?
1,000,000% believer in that. We own a few patents on interactive television, and we power a lot of those technologies that you see. We power for Roku a lot of the commerce related or shopping related activity, and for Amazon and for Hulu and for many other places. So clearly we are big believers in that. I'll say two things. One, what we said about Instagram and the 6 million advertisers. What comes as a byproduct of technology and more advertisers is that people start to ask for other activities, not just reach and telling a story, but I need an action. Uber wants people to download an app. Other advertisers want you to add to cart or things like that. So all those activities, and I can generalize from T-commerce. It doesn't have to be literally I'm checking out on the television, but it's a television that allows you to lean forward and to make the action that is more than just the mental experiment of, oh, I learned something and persuasion starts to happen. So everything that goes beyond that, because television, that's all that they did in the past. But now you can do, I can add to cart, I can send to my friend, I can install an app, I can do different things. 100% this is gonna happen. And my analogy that I always use here is that you can see it in other sectors, that innovation happens not just by the dream, is by when friction comes out of the system. So what Apple did in so many things about mobile payment is none of the things are new, but in so many years, what they did piece by piece is encryption and security and the Apple Wallet and adding the card and then all of those things, and then all of a sudden mobile payment happened. But it's many years of adding different features that enabled the mobile payment. The same thing is happening here. Devices are there. When you unlock a device, a Roku or an Amazon Fire, an Apple TV, you put your credit card. So the number is already there. You authenticate it to all of those things. And all of those elements are happening. I would say just look at Amazon. Amazon is one of the largest players in television. It's kind of obvious that if someone will bring commerce to television, probably Amazon will have a skin in that game. And we're very much not far from it. Like the pieces of the puzzle are practically there.
Yeah. So Tal, I need to ask you a practical question. I'm blessed with 5 goddaughters, ages 2 to 9, and they're all very into the Mandalorian. How long until I'm going to hit a button on my remote and they're going to start hitting my pocketbook? And is it a toy, amusement park? And how much am I gonna have to spend here?
If it's up to me, next week. But because it's we definitely. No, I'll kind of, jokes aside. It's hard. You know how this saying is that things happen slower than you can imagine, but when they happen, they scaled up faster than you would have imagined. So, but I would say that the pandemic, it's kind of a corny thing to say, but the biggest thing that we heard, as there's roughly 1,000 different brands that use Innovid in the United States right now. All the large name that you can imagine. The biggest thing that we've heard through the pandemic is, I want to move to a different KPI than reach. That's the statement that we've heard. Meaning that I don't just want to reach 100 million people. I want to know how many of them added a product to my shopping cart, downloaded an app. I don't know, request McDonald's delivered, whatever that is. In order to do that, that's one-to-one directional, one-to-one push to what we just said. All of them say, oh, I want to know that it added to cart. Clearly, I will have a button that says add to cart on the television set. So they are funding all of those things right now and literally put their money where their mouth is. We are part of, I'm on the board of the IAB, the Interactive Advertising Bureau. Specifically, there's a committee about interactive television. We're also on the board of there's something called the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers. Literally last week, there was a board meeting about, with maybe 50 marketers, that the biggest thing that they're pushing for is different actions on television advertising. So all the different marketers, doesn't matter if it's alcohol brands, pharmaceutical, even car manufacturers, all the big categories that sell ads on television, all of them now starting to change their practice to not just focus on reach, on eyeballs, but focus on actions. So they all are asking, what are the things that I need to learn? Right now we're in kind of test and learn. So to your question, when is that? I don't know, I would say you're going to start to see more things pop in probably 2022, but again, it's all kind of correlated. More sports will come 2023, 2022 and 2023. We're going to see a massive amount of sports coming in, so it will be mass market. By that time, there will be more devices out there, more technologies. In the next 2 years, more marketers will explore, and probably 2023, you're going to start to see that kind of reach the maturity scale.
Yeah, I guess you could see it's a curious combination when Amazon bids on the NFL licensing rights as well as the official merchandise. But
exactly.
Yeah.
And do you think, just to follow up on that, do you think that if Roku, for example, is taking 50% of ad and sharing it with the content producer or the content owner, the value of the ad becomes the most interesting piece in t-commerce. Do you see a scenario where the value of the ad is more of related to what is actually sold, almost like an Amazon
Yes.
model, or instead of just a cost for an impression? So yeah, if you sell $100 pair of tennis shoes in the middle of a movie, how is that priced? Is that priced differently than it would have been before commerce?
So my God, I don't believe that maybe Amazon would do something like that, but I don't believe that that's scalable. The reason is that that's the biggest problem of advertising is attribution. It's very hard to know what actually drove you to sell those shoes, because probably there's a combination of multiple ads. It's not just the last one that clicked the add to cart. But there's definitely discussions about cost per, and the cost per doesn't have to be cost per sale. It could be cost per add to cart, cost per. I'll tell you an example. Roku already has a product that we power that is called Channel Install. And this is geared for endemic advertisers. So let's say Disney Plus wants more distribution of Disney Plus. They can run an ad for Mandalorian, and you can click an ad to install Disney Plus on Roku. But so literally you can in the ad there is an ad, there's a product that you click a button and we install. But all of the things that you would imagine that television would do is actually happen, but it's crazy that it didn't happen before. We know that you don't have Disney Plus on your device because, again, this is a digital device. So we know that, so we run that ad only to people that doesn't have Disney Plus installed on their device. And then we run that action, that graphics on top of it that you can click to install. And if it didn't work after a couple of times, we try something else. Now, I'm just going to sum it up with one thing about Roku here, is that you said about 50% of ad avails. It's not exactly the case. It's maybe a little less than that. But the interesting part is that when what we're talking about right now happens, it's not just selling an ad. In order to actually partake in that marketplace, you need the technology to know that the app is installed or not, to know what is that household, to get access to the credit card on the device. All of those things are ones that Roku have, and the operating system owners altogether have an absolutely unfair advantage, complete monopoly in that case. So that means that my bet is that Roku and Amazon and Google and others, TAM will not just be that they take share of ads, they're gonna start selling tech tax of saying, fine, Hulu, you wanna sell 100% of the ad? Amazing, but you don't have the credit card. You don't know who's that user. You do not know that they already have that app or they watch sports because you only know what you know. We will give you that, but then don't give me ad load, but pay me 30% of the data that or fees for the data that you use to sell your own ads. So that just in terms of even on gross margins and on even on capex of that, it drops significantly because on that point, they only sell data.
Interesting. Wow. That's great. Well, it's a really, really exciting time, and it's a really exciting industry. And this has been a really great talk. Really appreciate it.
Great insights. Thank you, Tal.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
stream on.
Well, have a good weekend, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure chatting. Bye. Guys. Bye.